Last time, we followed the price tag as it left the shelf. We watched the fixed public number, printed once, the same for everyone, dissolve into a digital system that could bend with data, timing, and code. That was the how. This is the who. Today, we're naming names. Instacart, Target, Amazon. Then further out, food delivery, hotel rooms, concert tickets, apartment rent. Each has a word for what it does to a price. Some of those words are accurate. A few are even boring. But the question isn't whether the language is technically correct. It's whether that language ever told the customer what happened to their number. Start with the cleanest case. In 2025, a Groundwork Collaborative and Consumer Report study sent 437 shoppers to compare grocery prices on Instacart. What they found wasn't a single hidden markup, it was multiplication. Nearly 3/4 of the tested items showed up at more than one price. A dozen Lucerne eggs appeared at 5 different prices. Same Safeway, same city, same moment. Instacart's explanation was, in its way, straightforward. These were temporary, randomized A/B item price tests. Public evidence did not show that income, age, or other personal traits determined the result. It showed that shoppers were being sampled, but notice what that leaves out. There was no visible way to know you'd been entered into a price experiment on your groceries. The system may not have known who you were. You still walked away with a number an experiment invented. Instacart ended those item price tests in December 2025, though the regulatory questions didn't leave with them. Instacart's experiment was invisible. Target's trigger was a parking lot. In 2019, a Care 11 investigation found that some prices in Target's app changed as investigators approached or entered a store. In one case, a Dyson vacuum in the app jumped $148 the moment the reporter stepped inside. Target's answer was that online prices and local store prices could legitimately differ, a real distinction. The trouble was that the number moved without telling you which price you were looking at or why it had shifted under your feet. In 2022, Target settled with California prosecutors and was barred from using technology to raise an app price purely because of where a shopper was standing. The settlement required clearer disclosure. Target didn't admit wrongdoing and later made the price source easier to see. So this is history, not a live warning. Target didn't need your biography. For a moment, your location was enough to change which price appeared. So far, one shopper, one location. Amazon jumps the scale to the market itself. According to a Federal Trade Commission complaint, Amazon ran a secret algorithm codenamed Project Nessie. The FTC alleges Nessie would test a price increase, then watch whether competing retailers followed. If they matched the higher price, it could stay. If they didn't, Amazon could quietly walk it back. The FTC alleges this produced more than $1 billion in extra profit, mostly between 2016 and 2018. Amazon disputes that characterization, and no court has ruled the allegations true. The system isn't described as running today. Nessie, as alleged, is not a machine that studied you and set your personal price. It's an allegation about the market, about whether the shelf around a product could be nudged upward and whether the rest of the industry would nod along. Instacart tested what different shoppers would see. Amazon allegedly tested whether the market would follow. 3 cases, and already they refused to line up. Randomized testing, then location, then an allegation about repricing a market. No single illegal method connects them. The thread is quieter. In every case, the customer could see the final number. What they couldn't see was the machinery that produced it. But what if the product price doesn't change at all, and the final total still does? Welcome to food delivery. On Uber Eats, the restaurant sets the menu price. What Uber's systems can calculate are parts of the total around it, the delivery charge and certain fees, using distance, estimated time, and how much demand and driver supply exist at that moment. Some promotions are targeted too. There's no public evidence that Uber Eats reads your income or demographics to guess what you'd personally pay. New York now requires a disclosure when an algorithm sets a price using personal data. But a label isn't by itself proof of discrimination. The catch is simpler. You see the final total, but can't pry it open to check how much each moving part added. Hotels work a different angle. On Booking.com, the property generally controls its own room rate, but the platform lets it hand out discounts only some travelers can see. Open the mobile app, and a partner may have switched on a mobile rate worth at least 10% off. Search from certain countries, and a country rate might apply. A logged-in Genius member may unlock another discount. Stack those together, and two people can pull up the same room, same nights, and land on different prices. That's segmented pricing and targeted discounting. It is not proof that repeated searches make the site track you and quietly raise the rate. Public evidence does not establish that. Booking may not punish the eager traveler with a higher price. It just decides who gets to see the discount. Now, a company that used the technically correct term and still didn't solve the problem. When Oasis tickets went on sale, the UK's Competition and Markets Authority took a close look. And here's the twist most people get wrong. It did not find real-time algorithmic dynamic pricing. What it found instead was preset tiers. As cheaper tickets sold out, more expensive ones appeared. Some labeled official platinum, costing substantially more for no extra benefit. The problem, the CMA said, fans weren't told clearly up front about the price ranges or how many cheaper seats existed. That timing matters. Many fans reached the higher tier only after hours in a digital queue, which makes the missing disclosure more consequential, not less. Ticketmaster gave formal undertakings to change its practices and didn't admit wrongdoing. Artists and promoters do help set these prices. So it could honestly say this wasn't dynamic pricing. It just didn't show fans the higher tier before they'd committed the afternoon. And then the case that stops being about you and becomes about the whole street. RealPage's customers aren't shoppers. They're landlords who are supposed to compete with each other. Here's what the U.S. Department of Justice alleged. Competing landlords fed non-public, competitively sensitive information, their rents, their vacancies, into RealPage's revenue management software, which fed back rent recommendations. According to the DOJ, that shared system reduced the independent decision-making meant to keep rivals undercutting one another, aligning rents among landlords who were never supposed to read from the same page. RealPage's defense: its software merely analyzed market conditions, and landlords stayed free to reject any recommendation. In November 2025, the DOJ announced an agreed settlement and filed a proposed final judgment restricting the use of competitors' current non-public data and certain price alignment features. RealPage didn't admit wrongdoing, and this was never about profiling individual renters. But a rent baseline built from a rival's confidential numbers isn't really independent competition, even if a landlord could say no. Instacart raised a question about 2 shoppers and a carton of eggs. RealPage raised a bigger one. What happens when competitors start listening to the same voice? Line them up one last time and let each keep its own word. Instacart called it experimentation. Target called it local store pricing. Amazon called it a pricing tool. Uber points to logistics and marketplace conditions. Booking offers targeted rates. Ticketmaster used price tiers. RealPage calls it revenue management. None of those terms is a lie. None is automatically illegal, and most describe something real, which is what makes them slippery. A company can hand you a description that's accurate to the letter and still leave you unable to answer the only question you had: why this number, and would the person beside me get a different one? The old price tag stood in public. The new price is assembled behind the screen, through experiments, locations, fees, tiers, and algorithms. And when the number can change without the reason ever being shown, the price stops being a fact you can compare. It becomes a decision you are simply asked to accept.